Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm John Clay, and you're watching another episode of Parenting the Clay Way, and I'm here with my co-host Travis McCabe from Green Bean Coffee. Thanks, Travis, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank
nice
you for
to
having
see
me.
you. You know, you're feeling a little bit under the weather today.
I was. I'm recouping.
A little, but in this case, you think it might have been a little something you ate that affected you. But it's a great time for us to talk about sickness. And I want to say just off the top, sickness in children and being a parent and trying to deal with sickness is probably the most difficult thing that I have dealt with regard to an unexpected challenge that all of a sudden takes over your world, and now you've got to deal with it, and it spreads, and it either impacts you or others, and it really diminishes your ability to be a good parent, to handle everything. It's just really wipes you out. But you cannot take a break. You can't take a sick day from the kids. So there's no question. It's way in my top 3 most challenging things about being a parent, at least when the kids were in daycare and they were sick every few weeks or whatever. Tell me about your first reaction about being a parent and having to deal with sickness, either yourself or the kids.
The struggle is real. I mean, not just for yourself. Obviously, we're doing everything we can to keep ourselves healthy. But when we are down and our kids are down, it's up to us still to step up, to take care of them or whatnot. And all we want is to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and it's, and I'm sure your boys are the same way as mine. Whenever I do get sick and everybody else is feeling well, they'll be like, oh, what can we get for you and this and that, and that's great. But as, our children are younger, which I'm sure you're experiencing now, it's tough. It is so tough, when the whole family's out. All you can do is, medicate and be like, all right, you're taken care of. And then it almost takes you back to when they're little. Try to sleep when everybody else is resting. You're trying to rest when they're resting. And everybody's just kind of huddled together in your own mountain of sickness, just comforting one another. And it's such a struggle.
I think first of all, you can't get too outraged by it or too upset, because it is going to happen. I mean, you are going to get sick. Everyone's going to get sick. And I think that just mentally preparing yourself for that is important. Having the supplies on hand that you might need is important, so that you're not trying to get out and get those things while you're dealing with all of it. And I think, using good sanitary skills with hand washing, of course, would be number one crucial thing.
Sure.
And teaching kids, of course, how to cover their noses, and for us to do the same or whatever. I think for me, mentally, it's probably more important than anything else to be prepared, and then when you're in it, to know how to get through it, to be ready for that mentally. It's not just the feeling sick.
Right. And I think that's exactly it, mentally being prepared. But it's like, even when they're young, and they're below 1 year old, and they're just learning to speak. You're not even speaking yet. And, your own personal frustrations because they can't tell you how they're feeling.
Yeah.
You're just like, speak to me.
Yeah, you're worried because they'll have a fever. Usually that's the number one thing that crops
exactly.
up. And then what could this be? And then, other things happen. And then, of course, as you have more kids, you're so less concerned, right? Like, because they're just so bulletproof in a sense.
Exactly.
Like, they really have gone through everything, and they're just fine. And rarely do you actually need like medical intervention. I mean, there are some key things,
right?
A fever that spikes certain temperatures over, but other than that, the doctors never seem to be so concerned about hardly anything. They just sort of but they recognize parents are so. You get so nervous and anxious about the fact that your child might be dying, and you're so upset about what am I supposed to do. And you definitely feel that when you take them to the clinic or wherever, and they're just like, okay, yeah, we've seen you parents before, you're fine, go ahead. But they do try to pat your back and make you feel like everything's okay.
Yeah, it's like, you did a good job. Here you go. Yeah. But it's far from, I think we get it ingrained in our heads, and it's just because they're our children. We always want them to be healthy. We always want them to be well. And when a child goes down, I think our mentality, especially first-time parents, we instantly go to like Little House on the Prairie days. It's like, oh my God, my child's going to die of dysentery.
Right. Yeah, something. Yeah, and you go on the internet too, which is scary. Always makes it scary.
Exactly. And it's, we have to be rational about it, and be like, a fever's a fever, but is it this or that? Are you doing everything you normally would have done to lower your own temperature? Are you keeping yourself hydrated? Are you doing what you can do to try to cool it down? Is there anything weird going on? Not, then there's not too much to worry about.
I have found that. So just a couple of the tips that I would pass on. One is make sure you have a thermometer. And you got to be able to measure that stuff, and you don't want to wait until it's too late or in the middle of it before you're searching for one.
Sure.
And having one and of course they all seem to run out of batteries, and so you never have a working one. You go through all these ones. So that would be a key thing to do when you're calm, is get one of those squared away. Certainly the ibuprofen and Tylenol rotating, you can give them both and you can kind of swap them a little bit to kind of overlap, which is helpful. Always have that on hand. I did have some times when I took trips and then didn't have it, and wow, that ruined the whole trip because we, in the middle of the night, were dealing with fever.
Right.
Cold washcloth is great to drop the fever a little bit, and just hydration, Pedialyte or Gatorade, to get those levels up. I mean, I think following just a few 1, 2, 3 things, that takes care of the vast majority of
a lot of
cold
sickness.
flu type situations.
Yeah, absolutely. But then I think we also have to be self-aware of when you have done everything, when is the time to be like, what, this is beyond my control, and it's time to actually call the doctor, go to the hospital, depending on the severity of the situation, because we never want to, be like, they'll be fine, in the morning. Next thing you know,
right?
It's spiked beyond belief.
Spiked. Yeah, my brother had that happen, and he felt like it had long-term effects on his ability to have children because the temperature went so high, and that it may have done something. He never was sure, but those were the days when they weren't as quick to go take. We rarely ever went to the hospital or to the doctor when I was a kid. I mean, it had to be something so major.
Yep.
And now it seems like we're quick to take them because we have a MedExpress and we have that availability so easily, and it doesn't tend to be that expensive, to do it.
Yeah, I agree. And I was the same way. Growing up. I couldn't tell you the amount of times I went to the hospital because it was so infrequent. It's like my mom would be like, here, eat some dirt to get some germs in you to build your immune system.
Robitussin.
Up.
Get the tussin in you.
Exactly. Or just don't worry about this. You need the germs. It's good for your immune system. It helps you build it up and this and that. And, to some point, I guess so, because you don't want to constantly medicate or they don't establish that immune system, But once again, it's the self-awareness factor of like, I know my child better than anyone. This is when they are at their worst.
Right.
And they're past that now.
Yeah.
There's something really wrong.
And I do want to say one thing for parents, too, that have kids in daycare. So that's so awful. Going to daycare, seeing up on the wall, I'd see a board that says, currently in this daycare, we have, it would be literally pink eye and things like that are extremely contagious, right? And you just had to hope and that they wouldn't get it, And then when you do have some symptoms, you can't take them in. That's a whole issue in itself. But I will say that it was true that once they get through about 6, 7 years old and they're out of daycare and they go to a more established school where most of the kids have already had it, man, the rate of sickness just drops off, and you're only having it a couple times a year, which is normal and so much easier to deal with.
Absolutely. And and it's also the nice thing, like going back to as your kid gets older or your children get older, they're able to tell you how they're feeling. We know ourselves better than anyone. If something feels off, we're going to say about it, But then it comes to the point of a child who's like, well, are they trying to play hooky because I don't want to go to school now? It's like, I got an upset belly. Well, I can't judge an upset stomach. I'm trusting you that you have an upset stomach, but you're only going to play that card so many times.
Well, I had an interesting one where my oldest had claimed he had vision issues, basically wasn't able to see correctly out of, I think it was just one eye. And when you look it up on the internet, now you see all these, this could be this, that, whatever, and it was very alarming because there could be like stroke or some things like that, brain issues. Well, when we got him, we ended up taking him to his pediatrician, who then told us to go to the eye specialist. And when we got there, he could see perfectly. There was no issues.
Right.
So either it was a temporary thing, or he needed some time away from school and was pretty clever about it.
Right.
It seemed sincere, but that was an interesting aspect of knowing that your child is going to pull a fast one on you occasionally.
They do.
You know?
But you know what? Just roll with it. All
Yeah.
right, you know, you're fine.
And you'd be relieved that it wasn't the worst case scenario.
Exactly.
The best case is that, you know, and it turns out that there's no problems or whatever. So.
Yeah. And that's why they have school nurses as well. It's like, you know what? You're going to school. You still feel that way, go to the nurse.
Yeah.
They'll call me if there's something wrong.
Yeah. So all in all, things pretty healthy in your family.
Yeah. I mean, all of our kids are older. You know.
Yeah.
Now they're coming to me and like asking where the medication's at. They know what they need. They just take care of it. And I'm like, I don't know. I'll go buy some. You know. So we're at that point where everybody's healthy. You know. And if you are sick and down for the count, it shouldn't linger on too long. You know. God bless you. You're.
I'm
you're
still in the thick of that
in
4, 6, and 8-year-old. And one other note too to pass on, just a nice note to parents about keeping track of medications. You know, these medications are often taste like candy. I mean, definitely having a place to put them where the kids can't get to them, that you can lock up, that they're away from them, and stressing the seriousness of how this is only for medicine, and this is, you know, you want them to take it, so you want it should taste good, but then you also don't want them to take it, you know. Of course, you hear about kids overdosing on even things. Aspirin is very dangerous to overdose on, and some cough syrups and things like that. That can be. I mean, we don't actually even use cough syrup anymore in our family.
Right.
It's like some of those things. I tend to buy things individually now.
Sure.
I don't get the big pack of NyQuil. I'll just get the items that I need that make up NyQuil, and it's a lot cheaper, and I can control it a lot easier about how much they're getting.
Right.
You know.
And then going back to that point, you know. With sickness, you know, obviously it usually has a tendency to be more winter-based and the cool weather. You know, a lot of times you won't need it for the rest of the year. So check the expiration dates. You know, that's huge. You know, there have been times I'll be like, oh, let's get this out. You're not feeling well. You know, oh, crap, it expired
it's a couple
4
years
months
ago.
Yeah, exactly. You know, or 4 months ago, you're like, oh, you know, it's just one of those things that's in the back of our head that we just don't. It's not common until we need it.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, we got that. And you're like, oh, it's not any good.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we invite you to share your comments with us about sicknesses in your family, how you've dealt with it, some maybe remedies that work really well. We'd love to hear of some natural remedies and things that you don't have to use medicine for. So if you have those types of stories or suggestions, please post them. We'd be glad to hear from you. And we're going to sign off for now, but I'm John Clay.
Travis McKay
from Green Bean Coffee. Thanks so much for joining us for Parenting the Clay Way. We'll see you next time.